After a couple really heavy episodes talking about society and how much of a mess everything is right now, I wanted to bring something a little lighter. So today we're talking about alpha male dad versus Bluey-style dad. Which is better? Which are you? And is it possible to be in the middle? And we're going to dive into it because we're going to break down the pros and cons of both the alpha male dad and the Bluey-style dad. Let's get into it. So if you're like me, you're probably thinking, there's no way I can be an alpha male dad because I'm not like 6'3" and 280 pounds of just chiseled iron. However, you may find that you've got some characteristics of the alpha male dad that you didn't even realize you had. Because the alpha male dad is more traditional in their approach. It's like the authoritative dad, or holding high expectations dad, or expecting your child to make the most of themselves and understand discipline. You see, the alpha male dad, as we are conditioned to think, is the testosterone-filled father who thinks about nothing but pumping iron all day. And although that can be a part of it, because I think the alpha male dad thinks that they need to take care of themselves, it doesn't necessarily need to. So let's break down the positive side of this fatherhood style. First, protector. The alpha dad is a protector. At all costs, wants to protect their families. And I think probably that speaks for the majority of fathers in general. But that is a real focus, maybe the biggest key focus for the alpha dad. Beyond that, it's usually the father who's serious about things and takes things seriously and wants to make sure that certain things are followed a certain way. These are all positive traits of that particular style of fatherhood. I will also say there's a focus on taking care of themselves, not because they're always egomaniacs. However, some people believe that is a trait of that style of being a father. It could also just be they believe in taking care of themselves because that makes them better at taking care of their family and taking care of their work and just taking care of their life in general. So it absolutely can be a positive asset. It could be something that makes them even healthier because they're an alpha male dad. Beyond that, they also expect their kids to figure things out. They give them room. They step back and they say, you're going to figure this out on your own. Go do it. And there's definitely some positives in that. But let's skip over to the con side, because although there are some positive traits in being the alpha dad, there's some downsides as well. First, many times the alpha dad can be more critical because they're very serious. They can analyze things, not necessarily from a positive perspective, but picking out the things that they see in their kids that are not going well or they need to improve upon. That doesn't always have to be a negative, but in this case, it can be because it can lead to more stress. I'm going to give you a quick example. My grandfather was a retired sergeant major in the Air Force. And as you can imagine, he ran a tight ship. And he was very serious and very demanding and had high expectations. There's a positive side to that. However, because of it, we all lived life on pins and needles. It was very serious. There wasn't a lot of fun. Sure, we followed the rules. We didn't mess around because we knew what he demanded, but it also created more stress. So there's also a negative side to that. The other part of that particular style of fatherhood means you can also kill confidence. There are some kids who respond really well to being demanding, giving them orders. Those kids might go on to be in the military. They might go on to be in service positions like working in law enforcement. But there are plenty of kids who do not respond well to that tactic, and it has an opposite effect because it kind of crushes their confidence. When someone is holding them to a high standard they know they can't get to, at least not right away, it kind of crushes their confidence. So there is a downside to that as well. Next, I'd say the alpha dad could also be a little too protective at times. Because they're always on the lookout for ways to protect their family, sometimes they can take things a little too far. And that can definitely be a problem at times. And the last couple I would say has to do with supporting and finding positive areas with your child's life. Because an alpha dad has a tendency to find areas for their child to improve because they hold a high expectation level. They might not necessarily be as supportive when their kid is struggling with something, whether it be medically related, whether it be school related, whether it be just life in general, any challenges. They might not listen as well as you would hope that they might. And the other part of that is the alpha dad might have a hard time finding the positives. And in order for kids to get better at something, there really needs to be a balance between finding the things that they improve on and also finding and seeing and letting them know that you see the positives that they're doing as well. So let's switch gears and let's talk about the other side, the Bluey-style dad. There are definitely some pros and some cons involved with being a Bluey-style father. Let's get into that. So first of all, positives, right from the jump, that's the fun dad who is funny and who is all in. By all in, just like in the cartoon, Bluey's dad is just constantly there, constantly helping, constantly wanting to be active and present. And that's absolutely a positive. Because of that, in many cases, that can lessen stress. Because what do we know about jokes and laughter and fun? When that elevates, stress gets de-emphasized. And brains, because of it, function better because for the majority of people, the higher level of stress that a kid has, the less functionality their brain's going to have. So in some cases, the Bluey-style dad actually helps the kids maybe with a higher level of functioning with their brain. As odd as that might seem, it goes back to being fun, being exciting, laughing, all those things that tell your brain like, this is good stuff, I'm feeling healthy, and let's keep going. The Bluey dad is also the very supportive dad in that he's willing to listen to his kids when they come to him and they say, hey, here's some issues I'm having. Or maybe actually prompts that discussion. You see your kid is down in the dumps and you say, hey, let's talk about this a little bit. And that can be really hard for a lot of dads, by the way. That's very common. Dads don't usually like to talk about their emotions and feelings. The Bluey-style dad is actually pretty good at it. And because of that, they show a high level of care and compassion for their kids. Their kids are pretty well aware that they are fully invested in them, and their love for the kids is like off the Richter scale. And finally, the Bluey-style dad builds up the kids. So we talked about one of the main differences being a critical view from the alpha dad because they hold a high level of expectation versus now the Bluey-style dad is very much the opposite, and it's like build them up, make them feel better about themselves, and rolls with things a little bit easier. So when things happen, it's like, you know what, it's okay, we're going to work through this. So definitely some positives if you're a Bluey-style dad. So you might be asking yourself, what are the cons of being a Bluey-style dad? Well, there actually are some. Number one, there are times in life to be serious. Personally, I'm a joke teller. I tell jokes all the time. My wife needs to remind me sometimes, like, dude, this is kind of a serious moment. Can you knock it off? And she's right. Like, there are times in life when you got to be serious. And so whether it be helping your kids with certain things or expecting a high threshold of expectation with them, there are moments in life when holding a high expectation and demanding more from your kids is really important. Another would be these fathers might be a little too involved. You've probably heard the term helicopter parents. That would definitely fall on the side of a Bluey-style dad. Being active is great. Being present is great. But being too far in that direction where you're always there for your kids and you can't take a step back and let them figure out things for themselves, that's a little too much. And that definitely falls into a negative category. You got to find a balance of being active, being present, but also letting your kids have some space sometimes. Because sometimes they don't get all the answers from you. Sometimes they're going to get it from others. Sometimes they're going to figure it out for themselves. If you've watched some of my previous videos or listened to a few recent audio episodes that I recorded, you know that impulsivity is a trait that I definitely possess as somebody with ADHD. So I like to do impulsive things. However, I think you can probably figure out there's a downside to that, right? Like, that's not always a great thing. And as you become a father, you really got to keep tabs on that. Because if it gets to be too much, you can create some real challenges for yourself. And I'll finish up on this. As odd as this might sound, Sometimes in life, the Bluey-style dad can be too positive, meaning that if all you're doing is focusing on the positive and reinforcing your kid with all the amazing things about themselves, yes, that's helpful. You're going to build their confidence, you're going to build them up, but they also need to know they have areas they've got to improve on. They also need to know, hey, I'm not great in this area, and that's okay. So I'm going to work on it. But if all they do is think about, I'm awesome in this, I'm awesome in this, I'm awesome in this, because you're pumping that into them, they might feel like they can conquer the world. But what happens if they hit a point where it's struggle, or they realize, I can't conquer this? Will they fall apart? Or will they actually have the ability to kind of re-regulate themselves and say, all right, let me figure this out? So there are some downsides to the Bluey style too. So which is better? Which do you fall into? And what should we do moving forward? So if you haven't figured out by now, there's actually positives from both sides that you can take as a dad and implement it yourself. Understand this, my personal philosophy is we're all going to screw up, we're all going to make mistakes. It's what we do after that that makes the biggest difference for a dad. So whether you think you're an alpha dad or you think you're a Bluey dad, understand there's positives and there's downsides of each of those. In reality, the best answer is in the middle. We need to grow, learn from our mistakes, and figure out what in the middle is our focus and what are the areas that I need to improve on. We all have them. Accepting that is a big step forward for dads, and a lot of dads struggle with that. A lot of dads don't want to admit they've got areas to work on, but we do. We absolutely do. So let me give you a few things that I think will help you moving forward. So it's not as much of this side is better than this side. If you've listened to me in the past, you know I'm not a huge believer in absolutes. There are very few things in life that it's absolutely this side versus this side, and it shouldn't be that way. Our society forces us that way, whether we like it or not, but in reality, most of the answers in life are in the middle. So let me give you a few non-negotiables, I guess we'll call them. Things to think about that regardless of where you think you are, you should be focused on. Number one, protecting our families. That is super important. However, don't go over the top. If you are over the top protecting your family, then it may be an issue. But it's certainly a part of fatherhood. You know that your role is to protect all those humans that you have in your house. So keep that in mind. That's super important. Number two, yes, there's times in life you got to be serious. But there's also times in life you got to show your fun side and your funny side. Let out the weird sometimes. Your kids need to see it. So there are times in life they need to see that you're strong. And I don't mean physically strong, meaning strong that you can be serious and help them, but also times when you can help them laugh at life and realize not everything in life needs to be serious all the time, and that helps them cognitively in their brain because it releases some stress. Number three, you need to be healthy. You need to take care of yourself. So as we talked about the alpha dad maybe hitting the iron a lot and working on cardio a lot, there's another side to that though. Take care of yourself, but if you're spending 3 hours in the gym, that's not needed because that's time away from your kids, which brings me to the next point. You need to be active and you need to be present. So you need to be healthy and find time and ways to take care of you so you can be your best for them, but you also need to be there for them. Now that doesn't mean the Bluey-style dad is there like all the time. That might not be you. If you're in law enforcement and you work at night, what are you going to do? You want to be available to the best of your ability whenever you can. So give yourself grace. If you're working, your job's important. It's how you help your family. But you also need to keep in mind, I need to be there for my kids to the best of my ability whenever I can. The next one, have high expectations for your kids, but support them. You see what I'm doing here? It's kind of like pieces of both. Support them in the process. Things don't come easy for people. Notice I said people, not just kids. Things don't come easy for people when it's new or when they realize they're not great at it. And that's okay. So don't automatically just say, keep working at it, get better. Like the alpha dad would be like, you're going to figure this out on your own. Actually, the answer should be, I've got a high expectation for you, but I'm going to help you get there. That answer's in the middle. Be supportive. Listen to your kids. Understand that things in life, they want to talk to you about, and that's okay. Things are challenging. Goodness, look at society. There's so much anxiety and challenges for kids out there. How could they not want to have people talk with them? As somebody who spent a lot of time in the last 26 years working with thousands of kids from pre-K all the way to 12th grade, I can tell you one of the most important things that I saw that kids were missing in their lives, and in many cases they told me they were missing, was one, maybe they didn't have a father, or two, their father just wasn't a part of their lives, period. Never really showed up to things for them or took part of helping them in things at home or out in school or wherever. So my message for you is have high expectations, but understand you're still going to have to support your kids. Be there for them and help them along the way. And finally, and maybe most importantly, love them. And for some dads, it's hard to tell your kids that you love them, but you need to. Tell them you love them, show them you love them. It needs to be both. Your actions and your words need to match, and they need to know it. Through thick and thin, through their great moments, through their bad moments, you need to show them you love them. You need to tell them you love them. You need to hug them and tell them you're always going to be there for them. So to wrap it all up, remember, we're all trying to get better. We're trying to fail, but we'll fail forward. And understand you can be parts of the Alpha Dad. You can be parts of the Bluey Dad. Figure out what you do well, figure out your ways that you need to grow, and focus on that and help your kids in whatever capacity you can. If you like this video and you want to see more of them, check this out. If you want to go deeper in these kinds of conversations, check out our podcast, Dad's All In Podcast.